I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a video that Trump re-truthed because he reposted on Truth Social, or posted on Truth Social, that had a line about maybe it's time to shut the bleep up and let him cook, with an image of Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, the Hodge twins, and another person in it. And so some people on the right who don't like some of those right-wing folks who have had a lot of different opinions about a bunch of different stuff, but I know they've had strong opinions about Israel and other stuff like that, but also have questioned Trump about foreign policy decisions. And some have said that right-left dynamics, the slave swap, and have stuck up for Iran and Qatar and other things like that. So is this a signal from the administration that, or Trump himself, that he's kind of sick of those folks who've been voicing negativity? And I don't know about that. I think he just probably maybe liked that particular sentiment and at the time. And but is he putting his foot down? I don't know. We'll talk it out. Also, I wanted to talk about this judge who wrote a unhinged opinion piece. It sounds like an opinion piece more than like a judgment, especially because it's signed off on the wrong date. But releasing that man who was taken into custody with his 5-year-old son after the mother wouldn't take him into custody. So that's gotten a lot of news. But he ended his ruling with two Bible verses, one of them being Jesus wept, and a photo of the boy. So a lot of people are like, is this real? Was this written by the Babylon Bee? And I understand people being hesitant about it. Because when I first saw it, those people questioning if it was real and if the Babylon Bee wrote it. It is in fact real, and sad, very sad. Also, I want to talk about Don Lemon, or at least some commentary around Don Lemon, because I think it's Jamil Hill was on CNN talking about like, oh, why is Trump picking on Black independent journalists? And I don't know, maybe it's because he went in the church and he allegedly did the crime. maybe that's all there is kind of to it, because Don Lemon has been doing his independent thing since he got canned from CNN. So I can't think of a lot of other particular Black independent voices that he's picking on. And if Don Lemon wasn't canned from CNN, he'd still be on CNN. But Don Lemon is trying to stay relevant, and he's on his own. So he's got to really try to make a splash. This is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to Don Lemon. And I don't know ultimately if he's going to be found guilty, but it's interesting that he's saying he didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, you don't think you did anything wrong? You don't think you did anything wrong? I saw that clip on TikTok. I don't have that clip pulled up right now, but I will certainly be talking more about it. Anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to blacknews.com. Check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation to the website, because it does cost a stream on my side. All that stuff, you guys get support. I very much do appreciate it, and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available on the website as well. Different t-shirts and whatnot, and mugs and so on. So you guys can check that stuff out as well. And I do have different books that are out. And one of my book series that I really, really love is, of course, I was going to say, of course, God blatantly against abortion, but that is my nonfiction book, but you guys can check that out. I really do love that one. But I meant to mention my book, The Color of God's Eyes, which is historical fiction fantasy. And the sequel is The Song on the Devil's Lips. And so, it's Black History Month. So a lot of times people reflect on different historical stuff during this time. So, it's a historical fiction fantasy, then so it's kind of moving to historical, alternate history. But there's a lot of cool stuff that is in there. Like then the second book covers the draft riots that happened during the Civil War. So um, I recommend that you check it out. I recommend you check it out. I meant to post a video, at least on my book talk page yesterday, of some little Black history facts that I did include in the book, but I started glitching like the video and I had to just reshoot it. So I didn't end up posting it yesterday, but I'll be posting little things like that anyway. So before we jump into the news, I hope you guys had a good weekend. Hope it was fun and productive and you guys were safe and happy and not doing crazy protest riot garbage. I just keep seeing more and more Target videos, by the way, of like all these white people just taking over Target, and it's just so deranged. And in my mind, I'm like, I wish I was in a situation where I was kind of witnessing that, so I could say like, what is wrong with you people? Like to have a cart to try to walk down the aisle while they're just trying to block it with their nonsense, and just see how they react to me and to whatever questions or things that I would respond with. And you might be questioning like, when is all this stuff going to get over? And I'm like, I don't know. I think white liberals have been waiting to make it about themselves for a long while. So they feel like this is their spotlight moment. So if they could be heroes by just purchasing a thing of salt at Target and then returning it, I think we might be saying this stuff for a while. I think we might be seeing this stuff for a while. So it's so cringe and theatrical. There's a lot of folks on TikTok, and I mentioned this before, who have been saying that, who have been pressured to speak out on certain stuff, but there's some people who, I don't know, who already opted to say stuff. And there was one girl, doesn't have a political account, I guess, and then I guess a lot of people in her DM started to say stuff like, well, would you, why, how many are you gonna take it? How many legals are you gonna take it to your house? How many legals are you gonna take it to your house? And so she's just like, I don't ask people for papers before I invite them to dinner, before they come over for dinner. And I'm like, this is why people really shouldn't talk about this stuff. I mean, you can say anything what you want with your platform online or whatever. Free speech, and you can, if you want to look, you have the freedom to make yourself look stupid if you want to. But if you invite someone to your house, I'm assuming you kind of know them at least a little bit, or there's some kind of decorum between you that you felt safe enough to bring into your home since you have a child. There's not just people breaking into your home and you're like, okay, cool, you can stay. Which there was an incident where there was a DoorDash driver who who was, getting food because it was DoorDash, and then the ICE pulled up, and the DoorDash driver, and it was a woman, ran into the house and wouldn't leave because she was scared to be taken by ICE. And so ICE is like, we're here for her. And there was a woman who lived there, and she was there with her baby and there with her husband. And they didn't want to give her up, but ICE is like, you're obstructing. Like she has to come out. And the woman was terrified. She was kind of like in the basement. And the whole thing was like terrifying, like from my perspective, because I'm just like, not terrifying, but more like horrifying, because I'm just like, why isn't your child taking priority? You don't know this woman. Maybe you think she's harmless, but how do you know that? Like, you're lucky that your husband was there and you're not the only person alone there, but why is this man just letting this person you don't know, who the law enforcement are looking for, stay in your home? And so it was a long video, and the woman was like, I have 11,000 followers on TikTok. She had a lot more after posting that, but it was so irresponsible as a parent to like, oh, my DoorDash driver just ran in my house. No way on God green's earth would I let that happen. And they're like, she has an ID. That does, yeah, and people give IDs even for driver's license to people who aren't here legally. That doesn't mean that she's doesn't have a final deportation order or something like that. So it was really wild. There's a lot of crazy stories going on right now online. A lot of crazy stories, just FYI. But anyway, let's get to this video that Trump posted online. And the person who made this video, I am not a fan of. Trump has reposted his stuff before, and I don't know if he's done it recently, but like during the primary season, and he's just a really disgusting guy, and I just don't think Trump should really repost anything. But this is like a still that's in the video. Maybe it's time to cook. Maybe it's time to shut the bleep up and let him cook talking about Trump. So I'll just go ahead and show you guys the video. And I wasn't surprised by who made it because it reminds me of another video that I will mention after we watch it.
Do you remember what it was like when the 2020 election was rigged and stolen? Do you remember all the bullshit stories people told you about how the fraudulent election would be overturned? Do you remember the symbols of tyranny when fences went up around D.C. for Joe Biden's inauguration? Do you remember watching fuel and food prices skyrocket in a matter of months? Do you remember watching our borders being invaded by a virtual army of unidentified criminals? Do you remember watching our nation get systematically destroyed for 4 years by the Joe Biden autopen administration? Do you remember longing for the days of winning when we had Donald Trump in the White House? Do you remember thinking he was going to die when the bullet aimed at his brain only grazed his ear? Do you remember rejoicing after witnessing the miracle that saved his life? Do you remember celebrating the epic landslide victory in November of 2024? This is what you hoped for. This is what you prayed for. This is what you voted for. So why are you questioning every decision he makes now that he's back in office? God didn't save his life so he could make mistakes. He knows what he's doing. Maybe it's time to shut the fuck up and let him cook. This has been a public service announcement paid for by the Dilly Meme team.
Yeah, the Dilly guy, not a great guy, but he can edit, certainly, but the first of all, let me just say the video, the idea that God saved his life, therefore he cannot make or God wouldn't save his life for him to make mistakes. That doesn't make any sense. That if God has mercy upon someone, that they're just incapable of making mistakes, that's okay. Did God not continuously preserve the life of someone who people compare Trump to all the time, King David? Throughout his trials and tribulations in life, he still made quite a lot of mistakes, and not everything that he did was good. So I don't really agree with the overall message of this particular video that Trump shared, that since God did this, we shouldn't criticize, or we wanted this, therefore you shouldn't criticize. And we didn't like Joe Biden, and we wanted, we missed the days before Joe Biden, which, we did, and wanted something different. We got something different. We didn't get Joe Biden 2.0 with Kamala Harris or something worse. We got Trump again. That doesn't mean that just because we got something better or revisiting some of those days prior means that, you're not going to have some complaints. We had complaints in the first term too. And he wasn't perfect the first term either. Remember when he was like pitching amnesty for a hot second? Was that perfect? So I'm not talking about this because I agree with the Dilly meme team and how they phrase this. Um, I just thought it was interesting that Trump truthed it out, especially since there's a segment where he shows Alex Jones and Candace Owens and the Hodge twins and Tucker Carlson. And the Tucker Carlson bit was curious because Tucker has been to the White House as of late, and Tucker has, close connections with JD Vance and stuff. And when Ben Shapiro laid out his list of grievances for a bunch of people at AmFest and gave very specific reasons, including very specific reasons about Tucker. Tucker got on stage and then he, tried to make it seem like disagreement on the right is about trying to thwart JD Vance. So, I know Trump has called Tucker out. I think specifically with some stuff about Iran and decisions that they made about dealing with the Iranian government and some attacks and so on. I think maybe that's when he called him out. So Trump has done it before, and I think he called him like Wacky Tucker or something like that. So it's not like he's not willing to say something about Tucker, who has obviously, I think, bigger pull and influence than the other folks that were featured there. But I think it's just interesting because a lot of the folks who would follow these people would still probably consider themselves to be on the right or pro-Trump or MAGA. And the person at the top is sharing this idea that these people are obstructors, I guess, basically from his agenda. So will there be more calling out? I don't know how much this is a serious line in the sand or anything, like that. I People are still surprised when Tucker shows up at the White House, and one way or another, Trump only has 3 more years to be president, and there is a serious war of ideology between segments on the right about who's going to be the face of the future and what's that party going to look like. Like Jeremy Boring was talking to on the Trigonometry podcast, and there was a comparison of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, and he's like, I don't think you should compare those people because Candace Owens is just doing like engagement capture. Like she has said several times to Jeremy Boring when he asked her, like, well, what do you actually believe? And she's like, I believe what the people believe. And basically, when you say something like that, what she's meaning by that is she's going to say the thing that gets her an audience, and she's going to keep saying that thing, and she'll shift her ideas and views to capture that audience or new audience or whatever. It's just who knows who the people is, but it's just a group of whoever is liking and clicking on her videos and watching it and giving her, added girls or whatever in the comments. But he mentioned that Tucker and Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and people like that are actually trying to shift the political landscape of the right, where yes, we do have like social conservatism, with like gay marriage and other things like that, but fiscally, and also as far as our policy, how we treat, I guess, foreign affairs and stuff would actually kind of be more liberal and stuff, more left leaning. And I don't even know what the end goal for that of Tucker is either. I mean, that I do agree with Jeremy Boring, but that's the way that he's pushing. I don't know how much of that is a actual inner belief of those sorts of things. And what is his goal to shift that kind of way? I don't know. I mean, I do think that at heart, JD Vance kind of seems like he's kind of more fiscally left than a lot of folks on the right, though he does hold like socially conservative views. So you can see how folks kind of gearing up for the future, JD is kind of their guy. So there is a real war. I think Hodge twins are probably just engaged in engagement capture and stuff too, with Candace. So I don't think Trump is necessarily hampering down on these people so much. Dan Bongino, on the other hand, is out there on the warpath against some of these like grifters and so on. So he's going on different rants attacking certain people, and good on him for having some clarity about these folks. But I just thought it was interesting and worth addressing. Anyway, let's move on. Jamil Hill, who's had a lot of terrible takes, she decided to talk about Don Lemon and why she thinks that he and Black, I guess, independent journalists are being attacked.
We need to remind ourselves of the racial element of this. There is a reason why I think Donald Trump not only picked independent journalists, but Black journalists in particular. Clearly, we know there's no love lost between Don Lemon and Donald Trump.
First of all, the reason why Don Lemon is independent is because he's no longer with CNN, and so it's not like an extra special thing about him being independent. So I don't think it has anything to do with anything.
He's been very critical of the president. The president they've gone back and forth. But if we go back and undo all the layers of all of this.
By the way, Trump going after someone has nothing to do with that person's race. Nothing. She's like, oh, they have a history. They go back and forth. Trump goes back and forth with a lot of people, a lot of white people. Don Lemon is not particularly special. Not particularly special. I just mentioned he criticized Tucker Carlson when Tucker Carlson was out there criticizing a bunch of stuff about Trump's decisions and whatnot. He'll go after anyone who he thinks is voicing and loud. If he turns on the TV and they're talking about him, he might just start tweeting, or not tweeting, but going on True Social immediately. So it's really not special. It's really not special. And people who are obsessed with race, like Jamil Hill is, she's absolutely obsessed with race. They try to make everything about race, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. But she really, really tries to make everything about race. It's not about race. It's really not. Let's keep watching.
It was Black journalists that were really at the forefront of calling Donald Trump out, from the birtherism movement throughout a lot of the things that they saw early before the rest of the press really picked up on some of the things that concerned a lot of Black journalists. Hello, me, who also called out Donald Trump in 2017. And the reason why I think he picked these particular journalists is being independent. You don't have the backing of a CNN. You don't have the backing of a big network. The other part of it, too, is that if you can make them the face of this issue that is happening in Minneapolis, we know that given some of the racial issues that we have in this country, it is likely to have a lot less sympathy because they are journalists, one, and people hate the press, and two, because they're Black. And so I do think that that's an.
So in our country that has been so obsessed with racial politics, period, she thinks it's more advantageous for Donald Trump to pick on Don Lemon because he's independent and Black. Well, first of all, there's a lot of independent journalists out there, like Nick Shirley, for example. He's not Black, but there's a lot of people who do work on the ground and have a YouTube show. You can pick any of them if you want to. There's a lot of left-wing independent journalists. Okay. Don Lemon obviously is a big name because he was on CNN for so many years, but he got canned from CNN, like, oh, CNN, whatever. I think it was right after some sexist comments. Where's the sexist kind of comments that there's other like activity or whatever that people found to not be appropriate or whatever from Don. But anyway, he got let go from CNN. So he's a big name. But it's not like he was some kind of, I don't know, firebrand in the independent journalism network or something. He's just someone who's no longer with CNN. He's not an extra special person as an independent journalist. So it's his lack of credibility that has led him to being independent, not him just being some kind of trailblazer or something to that degree. But we've been obsessed with racial politics in the United States for a long time. So a lot of people don't like journalists, but thinking that like, oh, well, they're just not going to stand up with them because they're a black journalist. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. First of all, the media has obviously been flocking to Don Lemon. I saw a video of Don Lemon at some event, and they were giving him a standing ovation. I'm like, this man invaded a church with a bunch of different people, and they're giving him a standing ovation. And you think, oh yeah, Trump picked him out because it's just so easy to attack black people. It doesn't make any sense. But maybe, just maybe, the reason why Donald Trump decided, or the DOJ decided to go after Don Lemon is because he went into that church. Maybe it's all those people who decided to go into that church, and Don Lemon going into the church too, harassing the pastor, and saying, oh, like, yeah, these people are terrified, but they're probably traumatized, but that's the point of the protest. What is like bonkers to me, before they went there, let's say he didn't know that they're going to go to the church until they pulled up at the church, but he definitely knew they were going to the church when they pulled up at the church. But let's say he didn't know. When he interviewed Miss Armstrong, who organized the event, she explained what they usually do, and their point is to disrupt. So that was her intended goal, and he knew that was their goal. It wasn't, oh, let's see if there is a disturbance. He knew they were there to cause a disturbance. Now he didn't have a, there's no duty. He didn't have a duty to report that to the like police or anything like that. That's not like the issue. The issue is like, is he some kind of conspiracy? There's a conspiracy against rights that he's been charged with, and there's also the FACE Act. Now, if he didn't conspire, then I guess we could throw out that first thing I mentioned. But it seems like he did the FACE Act for sure. I think he did both. But when he interviewed her before they got in their cars and went to the location, she mentioned that one of the things that they did was pull up at like I think a police union chief's house. So they do this crazy, shady invasion of privacy kind of stuff all the time. And Don's like, well, it's newsworthy. I'm going to document it. But he said it was when we pull up to this operation, we do this, when, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that they had the audio inside the church before they went in, it seems sketchy to me. And then he's like, he claimed in an interview, he's like, oh, I just kind of hung back to see if there would be a disturbance. Is that like you got a tip from somewhere and then you're just kind of waiting in the wings outside for something to happen? You were with them. And you could say, well, some journalists and stuff could do ride along stuff. Okay, but he also like conspired to hide like information from the public about their stuff. So he was like actively trying to make sure that their stuff was concealed. So it seems like it was a little bigger than him just being an observer. And you could be an observer just sitting in the church doing this. Okay? You're sitting there, you're documenting, you're observing. Go arguing with the pastor about how all these people who are terrifying your members have a right to be there doesn't seem like a simple observational view. To me, we'll see what the courts say. But maybe, again, Trump isn't picking on Don Lemon. Maybe Don Lemon was just there in the church. And it's not just that he was there. It's also his rhetoric while he was interviewing people, and his idea of protest, the purpose of protest, defending them, just like people on CNN defended the BLM riots where people were actually being killed, property burned down, lives destroyed. These people are activists. That doesn't mean that they don't tell facts sometimes. It doesn't mean that they don't report news. But let's not pretend he just picked on him because, oh, poor Don Lemon is black. It's so stupid.
Important part of this, especially given the president's own language when it comes to anti-DEI and making Black people the face of woke and all that we've heard from this administration. All of this.
Black people are not the face of woke. There's some woke Black people, okay? But white women, not all white women, white liberal women, like the purple hair and the nose rings, like, come on. When you think woke, you might find some woke Black folk. But they're not the face of woke. They're not the face. Like, come on. When we talk DEI, there are some DEI people that can immediately, like, that's the mascot right there. Like, for example, Kamala Harris. People get mad when people say that she's a DEI pick. She clearly was, because they wanted a Black woman to be the vice president pick. First, Joe Biden said it was going to be a woman. A bunch of people bullied him and wrote a letter, was like, you need to pick a Black woman. And Kamala Harris, who wasn't a great pick, who apparently wasn't great at her job, what very bad speaker, couldn't get far in her own primary, wasn't needed electorally. What purpose did she serve of being there other than she had brown skin? That's a serious question. Okay? And you can talk about all these credentials that she had. Other people had credentials and far less controversial recordings and positions than Kamala Harris. And she didn't do a great job as VP. Okay. And she didn't do a good job running her campaign at all either. So she was DEI. She just was. Ketanji Brown Jackson was DEI as well. That doesn't mean they don't have qualifications. But it does mean that they were picked for inclusion's sake, diversity's sake, for equity's sake too. Oh, it's about time America looks more like the Supreme Court looks like the rest of America. That's why we got to pick a Black woman. She's got all these merits, and her merits wouldn't have meant anything if she wasn't Black, or she were a Black man. So don't make choices based on diversity, equity, inclusion, and get offended when people point out that they're made based off diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I don't know. Maybe it's the case that when you think DEI, you think of certain particular mascots. Though a lot of white women have profited off of DEI, especially like if you claim you're gay, that's your entry into that world. Or you could be a man who claims to be a woman. If you think DEI, you could certainly think of our former assistant health secretary. That's a good mascot for DEI. But face of woke, my mind doesn't immediately go Black people, to just be frank. I don't think so. Someone said white, blue-haired, not even the purple, just straight blue. Rainbow-clad liberal women are the face of woke. That's what I think.
Is combined together and meant to drum up a certain sentiment against these journalists, so that people are supporting their own rights being eroded because of who they think it's happening to. Even if
and this is the thing that's the most annoying here. She's talking about rights being eroded, and my question is, why don't you care about the people in the church and their rights being eroded? Could it be because, one, you don't agree with their politics, and two, Jamil Hill, is it because most of them were white? It's because most of them were white. It's funny that she brought up race here, because Don Lemon noted when he was with the group before they went to the church, that he said they look MAGA coded. What's going on looks MAGA coded. But there's a reason why there's so many white people here, why there's so many allies. They need allies. Now I don't know what that reason is particularly why he thinks that's the reason. I'm interested in I guess a lawyer asking him during cross examination or something like that. But when he said that, I'm assuming because they wanted people to go in the church and kind of just sit down and then they would interrupt or whatever. And they're white. A lot of people there were white. I think there's some Asian people there maybe, but most looked like it was a mostly predominant white church. So is it because you were trying to make sure there's a bunch of white people there, Don? And then he went on to say stuff about them being white supremacists. Let me see if I can.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America. And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who.
Yeah. No one. No one cares about you. It's not about you being a gay man. It's not about you being a black man. It's about the fact that you were there. And you're and it's really annoying on top of all that gets him play and clicks and people are annoyed. Like I already mentioned, like people only talk about Don Lemon when he does something stupid, which he doesn't do wise things as far as his commentary and stuff. I mean, as far as eyeball engagement, I guess, if that's what he wants to get, he gets it. But he goes on these like moral rants. Like he'll mention like, well, what would Jesus think? And oh well, I'm a Christian, and what? And he's doing all this lecturing. It's like, no, you're not. Or like, what do you think a Christian is? Like I played the video last week of him on The View talking about like God doesn't judge. God's not about judging. God's not about judging. Like God himself doesn't do that. And, you're wrong if you want to hinder someone. You want to hinder someone's freedoms. Not from a constitutional standpoint, just from under God. Just and then we'll just go on lecturing people from them in this moral high ground that he just decided to make up. And then people upset about illegal immigration, and he'll go on and say, "Well, don't you know that Americans commit more crimes than illegal aliens? How, aren't they here illegally? There's way more of us than there is of them. So maybe when you add all the crimes up, but like, aren't they here illegally?" And he'll try to make you look crazy for caring about that there's people who are here who don't belong here, and people who have come here and committed crimes. Okay, Don, maybe there's a lot of people who come here after they've entered illegally or overstayed their visas, and they try to keep their head down and they're hoping that they never get picked up and sent home. Okay, sure. And they don't do as much as having a parking ticket or whatever. And they try to be model citizens. They still should have came in the right way, like so many people do, and they're on a waiting list. And there's so many requirements out of those people who come in the right way, including not doing a bad thing or whatever. But you still got to come in the right way. But what about still all the bad people who've come? All these people who claimed asylum, I fear for my life, all these adult males just swarming the border from all over the world, not just coming in from the southern border, from all over the world, including the Middle East, God knows how many terrorists unleashed in the country. And instead of really processing these asylum claims, they're just released into the interior of the country. And they just expect border towns to deal with it, people to get used to it, the cities to have to come up with the money to house people, take care of people. There were schools that like temporarily were bringing in people, and they're like, "Oh, your school's gonna be shut down for a while. We got to go to online classes for a minute. Oh, we're gonna house these people in your hotels. You can't afford the room in this night, but the government's gonna pay for it. The city's gonna pay for it. Oh, you can't feed your kids, but we're gonna give all these people, money for their food, and so on, so they can take care of themselves." No, we're not supposed to care about that, because you got a little stat that says, "Oh, but don't you know that Americans commit more crimes than these people than these immigrants?" Are you talking about the ones who broke a crime to come in here? Are you kidding me? So yeah, but Don Lemon, he wanted to make himself the center of attention, and he got what he wanted. Like, and a lot of people do man on the street videos. It's not this when you do like man on the street videos, and that's like your shtick thing on the internet. It's not just that the thing that you're reporting on, or the people that you're asking the questions to, are part of the story. Like, you do become part of the story. There's like an art to it, I guess, and a particular amount of boldness that you do have to have for doing like the man on the street repeated stuff over and over again. It's like I've done it. It's not, my favorite thing. And there's times when you just go there there's a difference in going there to just report some things on the ground and hear what they say, versus you engaging and you debating and you arguing and stuff with them. Like when live action or I don't know, Abolitionists Rising are asking people questions on the street about their abortion opinions. They're there to change people's minds. They're doing activism. In there's a lot of people, there's videos I've seen of people go on the street and they're asking people about their opinions about Israel and Gaza and just things like that, for an example. And they ask them questions and they go back and forth, because their end goal isn't just to show the world what these people think, but also to change their minds. And he did not act in a way that was just covering the events of what was happening. Again, you could be an observer. An observer just sits there and observes. You could be a journalist and just sit there and record what's happening. You can interview people, but you should if you're gonna just legitimately interview people, you should just kind of maybe ask them what they're thinking or what happened. But lecturing people when a pastor's like, "I have to attend to my flock," and they're like, and your response is, "Well, what about the First Amendment and they have the right to protest and to be peacefully assembled?" You don't care about any of these people in the room, besides you noting that they're terrified and traumatized, and that's a good thing. You're defending the protesters. And then even said to one person about the aliens commit less crimes than citizens and stuff. There's activism going on here. And then Don Lemon he's trying to fact check people with stuff that's not even true. So it's annoying, for sure. Anyway, let's talk about the judge who is making some waves right now. Let's talk about the judge just making some waves. By the way, the Grammys happened, I guess the other night, and I know celebrities wore different dumb political pins, and Billie Eilish got on stage and said nothing is illegal on stolen land, and I could do the whole "oh, well, can people go to your house then" bit. But you know what? I don't care that much, I guess. I mean, they're dumb, and I could make a video about it real quick, I guess, but It's nothing new. It's so tiring. And they don't I mean they speak to their followers and they have dumb opinions too, but at the end of the day, I'm just not surprised. And I don't think they'll make a major difference. They've been doing this virtue signal stuff for years. And the kind of people who there's all kinds of people who like their music and they just listen to their music and that's the end of it and they're not going to look at them on any kind of personal level. The kind of people who go to them for political advice are the people who honestly already believe pretty much what they already believe and stand for anyway. So um Billie Eilish is a political idiot. I'm not shocked in the least bit. A lot of these people are political idiots. I'm not shocked in the least bit. They live in a little bubble, and I a lot of these folks I don't know, I don't recognize. I don't really listen to secular music, and if I am aware of some secular songs, it's probably because it trended on TikTok or something. It used to be because I watched different TV shows like The Vampire Diaries or Smallville or something, but I don't even watch cable TV. So if it's not like streamed on a good show that I happen to watch, which I haven't watched a TV show in a minute, like besides like an anime, and um nobody from My Hero Academia was at the Grammys the other night. The only thing that I kind of care about, I know that Golden got a Grammy, got another award from K-pop Demon Hunters. And so they got an Emmy already. I'm pretty sure I think they got an Emmy. So they have a Grammy. So if they get this Academy Award, we just got to bring K-pop Demon Hunters to like Broadway or whatever so they can get a Tony. And then EJ's going to have herself an EGOT. So that's kind of the only thing I really care about this kind of award season. You know, I did a little bit of commentary when people were mad about the Sinners movie or whatever, but and that was like a whole kind of racial argument and stuff too, but celebrities are dumb. Celebrities are dumb. I'm so not surprised by the shenanigans at the Grammys. The Grammys probably I they out of all the IQs, I would assume that I know that as far as being politically illiterate or just whatever, I would assume the Grammys kind of has the is on the lowest kind of scale of people who I would expect to go there and really know what they're talking about. But so I don't I just can't really muster myself to care a ton about it. Maybe that makes me a bad commentator, but that's about all I got for you guys right now. So another interesting thing that happened, there was a judge who issued an order for an illegal alien to release a father and his 5-year-old. And this has been a very viral story, and I'll read it all. It's only like 3 pages, but something that's very interesting. And I posted this on Facebook, and some people were like, "This can't be true," and some people asserted that it wasn't true. Unfortunately, it is true. But it's pretty unhinged, even from the wrong date, signed this 31st day of February in 2026. So not only is it the wrong date, it's a date that doesn't exist, which is really funny. The judge is Fred Breary, and he's a district judge. And he also included a photo of the little boy with the hat with the little floppy ears that is super viral. But he also included 2 Bible verses. And one Bible verse is Matthew 19:14. And that's when the children are like near Jesus, and he's like, "No, let them come. Like let me pray for them," and so on. And so at the next verse, I didn't know off the top of my head which verse that was. I know the verse. I just didn't know off the top of my head what verse it was. So I looked it up and then I just bursted into like laughter because the verse is Jesus wept, and it's just so performative. Because I'm looking up the verses. I'm like, is this gonna have anything to do with anything? Like, are they trying to stretch anything in the Bible for any of these immigration policies? Like, what's the point of these scriptures? And one of them is just Jesus wept, like the Jesus. We're all it's all so sad. We're all shaking our fingers at you. It's just really performative, really dumb. So anyway, let me read to you. Let me see if I can. And there's like no like legal case in here at all. It's just performative jargon and him being upset. It's got nothing to do really with the law. At least there's nothing like no cases and stuff cited. They cite the Declaration of Independence, and of course we got the Bible verses. But Kristi Noem, in her official capacity as Secretary of the United States, the Department of Homeland Security, Pamela Bondi, in her official capacity as Attorney General of the United States, Todd Lyons, in his official capacity as Acting Director, United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Darren McLaughlin, in his official capacity of Acting Director of the Executive Office of Immigration Review, and John Doe, in his official capacity of the Warden of Dilley Immigration Processing Center of Dilley, Texas, respondents. Sorry, there's like air blowing into my eye. Before the court, opinion order of the court. Before the court is a petition of asylum seeker Adrian Conjero Arias and his 5-year-old son for the protection of the great right of habeas corpus. They seek nothing more, nothing more than some modicum of due process and the review of law. The government has responded. The case has its genesis in the ill-conceived, incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. This court and others regularly send undocumented people to prison and orders them deported, but do so by proper legal procedures. So let me just finish reading it. I've got thoughts already, but let me just finish. Apparent also is the government's ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. So we're not doing like case law or whatever, citing some laws for them or whatever in this. We're just straight up Declaration of Independence. Okay. So 33 year-old Thomas Jefferson enumerated grievances against a would-be authoritarian king over an assignation. Among others were has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people, has excited domestic insurrection among us, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. He has kept among us in times of peace standing arms without the consent of our legislators. We, the people, are hearing echoes of that history. And then there is the pesky inconvenience called the Fourth Amendment, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, effects against the unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by an oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Civics lesson to the U.S. government. so sassy here. Administrative warrants issued by the executive branch to itself do not pass for probable cause muster. That is called the fox guarding the hen house. The Constitution requires an independent judicial officer. Accordingly, the court finds that the Constitution of the United States trumps this administration's detention of petitioner Adrian Conjero Arias and his minor son, LCR, the Great Right, and release from the detention are granted pursuant to the attached judgment. Observing human behavior confirms that for some among us, the ferocious lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest know no bounds and are bereft of human decency, and the rule of law be damned. Ultimately, petitioners may, because of the arcane United States immigration system, return to their home country involuntary or by itself deportation, but that result should occur through a more orderly and humane policy than currently in place. Philadelphia, September 17th, 1787. Well, Dr. Franklin, what do we have? A republic if you can keep it, with a judicial finger in the constitutional dike. It is so ordered, signed this 31st day of February 2026. And of course, the signature, the picture of the boy, and the actual scriptures down there that he cited. So pretty wacky. Sorry, I got Irish just like coming in my eye. Yeah, that's very sassy. Very sassy and unprofessional for a judge. But it's just, it is the case that administrative warrants have been enough. They didn't go into this man's house to just like break him out or something. They detained him on the street, and they have his son because he wanted his son to remain in custody with him. They didn't, like his mom wouldn't take him or whatever. He stayed with his dad. And so what was interesting to me, he's like, oh, we're going to do this even if it traumatizes children. Don Lemon apparently thinks that's what protests and others, what they were supposed to for political change or whatever. I know there's so many people who have been separated from their kids. And I know people who went to the Capitol January 6th, walked around, did all kind of different stuff, okay? And don't believe they assaulted any like officers or anything like that. But I know they had federal agents pick them up in front of all their kids, came in their house acting full, picked them up in front of all their kids, and pro-lifers who were protesting outside of abortion clinics or whatever ended up being arrested in front of their kids. People who just go shoplift with their kids get separated from their kids. People get separated from their kids all the time when they do bad things. And he opted to take his son, to have his son be with him so they would be separated. We would rather children not have to go through different things and see things. Like there's this one video that went pretty viral on TikTok. I don't know when the actual arrest happened, but there was a woman, she was shoplifting, and there was a female officer who came up to her and was like, we need to detain you. Like, I don't want to do, like, I need to accompany you to the back room or whatever. And we don't want to, like, I don't want to have to, like, do anything in front of your child. And she's just like, no. And I don't know if she wanted to act crazy because it was a female officer and she didn't respect her authority or thought she could take her down or whatever, but she grabbed the woman's arm and she started twisting behind her back and she called for backup. And then they got that woman like outside and she's like, my baby, my child. And so they ended up taking the child and they're like, you should have just cooperated because we just probably would have wrote you something. Yeah, would have gone to court or whatever to pay back the stuff. But we probably would have, not taking you in the cop car, but you resisted and acted crazy. So now you're going away in the cop car and we got to get your kid off to somebody. And at first she didn't want to tell anybody, who about her. She didn't want to give them the name of her husband or anything like that. She really wasn't cooperating. And they're like, we don't want this kid to have to go in the system, to have to stay with somebody else. Like, so if you can tell us the name of someone who can get the kid, and I don't think she could, I don't think she could get her husband or something. So she tried her mom and her mom didn't pick up. So she tried a friend. So her friend like picked up her child or whatever. But having a child doesn't grant you immunity from consequences. Children, I don't want children to be terrified. I don't want them to be traumatized, especially for nonsense or for things that we can avoid or reasons we can't avoid. I don't want to be traumatized, especially because of bad situations. But unfortunately, sometimes that's just going to happen. But that shouldn't stop people from doing their job, especially law enforcement. So this judge is just chiding them like, "Oh, you're this incompetent policy and this incompetent mass deportation, and oh, they're gonna do it even if it traumatizes children." So what, I shouldn't do their job? What about the people who are actually traumatizing children, who are trafficking children, who are hurting children? I'm not saying that that's what this father or whatever was accused of, but I'm just saying there's circumstances where people are doing those sorts of things. They need to be able to do their job. They need to be able to do their job. So it's just nuts. It's just nuts. So yeah, unfortunately, it's real. And there are people who are like trying to say, by the way, that like it's not. What do you mean it's not? It's the wrong date. It's not the wrong date. It says January 31st, and people had to just say, "Oh, you didn't read it all, huh? You didn't read a 3-page document." So yeah, it's signed the 31st of February. So there were some people in the comments who said, "I've had stuff thrown out just because it was the wrong date." Well, when it's a judge, I don't know how much of a stickler it'll be because they're the ones who could decide to throw stuff out. But anyway, this will get overturned, I assume. But for mine, I think that he's already back home or whatever. But these judges are really something. These judges are really something, and that's the thing about when people talk about like Trump or Kamala Harris. I would point out to people that Trump, there's so many checks and balances. Like our system has checks and balances, but the press, they want to report on him constantly, nonstop, and report bad behavior. The people want to sue him. People want to take him to jail. They have taken him to jail. Like there's these repercussions that Trump is going to face. When he does something bad, when he does something wrong, he has there's all kind of guardrails in place, and they're eager to try to stop him. You can say, well, the Supreme Court has stood up for Trump in a lot of cases. Yeah, because people sometimes go after him for dumb things, but there's things that the Supreme Court have struck down, that he's put forth or whatever. For example, bans on bump stocks, for example. Not everything that Trump wants, he gets. But there are guardrails, including like our press, including the judicial system. But unfortunately, there are people who overstep their boundaries, and good thing there are other courts that will strike down those dumb lower courts or people who are activist judges and whatnot. But when it came to like Hillary Clinton, and I saw how cozy the press was with her and John Podesta, like, man, I'm really concerned about, like, is there going to be like real repercussions or real like checks and balances and guardrails when she gets into place? And then Kamala Harris, I'm like, I'm really concerned about, like, if she's in place, that's their person. Are they really going to push back against her? Or are they going to try to do like more cheap fake stuff where they with Biden and so on? So there is just a better checks and balance system, because I'm not saying I want the media to be hostile. I prefer if they were just fair, but at least but they certainly do pay attention when somebody they don't like is in office. But my point is, Trump just can't get away with every single little thing. He's not some kind of fascist dictator who sends people to be executed if they disagree with him. And you can say, well, he's arresting journalists, ones who have allegedly broke the law. Sure. but to go back to that case, I don't understand why more people don't care about churches and their rights and the rights of the people there and their safety. That I don't understand. Like, let's take Don Lemon out of it. And maybe when you guys argue with people about Don Lemon, maybe the first thing you should ask is, okay, do you at least agree that the protesters who were there violated the law? And do you believe that they were at least wrong? And go from there, because if they can't even admit that, then you got a fundamental problem anyway. And you're not going to be able to convince them on Don Lemon. But at least I'm curious at least how people feel like, if they never charge Don Lemon and they just charge everyone else, would you agree that they violated and interfered, prevented those people from exercising their First Amendment rights? Because what I'm actually hearing from the Atlantic and folks like that is now they're trying to argue that the FACE Act is not constitutional. And it's funny that they didn't run pieces on it being not constitutional when they were putting pro-lifers in federal prison for years. So it's funny how it's just suddenly now not constitutional. Because they didn't have an issue before someone tried to protect churches and the members in the congregation. So anyway, that's all I got for today. There's an interesting story about a person who sued and was awarded $2 million for it was someone who was who had transitioned and detransitioned and decided to go to court. And so we'll probably look at that story tomorrow. So detransitioner wins $2 million against New York docs who pushed double mastectomy. So I guess we're still heading in the right direction for that, though. I heard someone from the Olympics is actually a male who hasn't even like transitioned. I mean, you can't transition into a woman, but I don't even think they have taken things to get to that point process. So I'll look more into that story, and we may talk about that one tomorrow too. But God bless you guys. You guys can go to blacktunies.com, check in different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what do, please consider leaving a donation to the site because it does cost stream rent inside all that stuff. So you guys can't support. I very much appreciate you guys. It seems like I'm still a bit congested up here. I did feel better, but the more I talk, the more it just kind of builds. But slowly getting better. I was able to sing and stuff during church, so it hasn't been like a bad cold and stuff. It could be allergies. And not like straight up cold. I don't know. Maybe that's why I could sing. So anyway, God bless you guys.